This episode covers July 26th through 31st, 2024, days 107 through 112 of My Grand Detour. I started this trip back on April 11th, and I can't believe that these are the last few days of this incredible 112-day, 18,000 mile solo motorcycle journey across the US and a little bit of Canada. These last 6 days carried me from Mitchell, South Dakota, all the way back home to New York City, through Minnesota, along the Trans-Canada Highway on the northern shores of the Great Lakes, across Ontario, and finally down the familiar highways of the Northeast. It's a stretch that feels both practical and emotional. The road home is still the road, and there's still adventure, but there's a different kind of energy to it. You're keeping an eye on the weather, watching the miles tick down, thinking about the people you'll see again soon. And at the same time, you're still taking in new places, meeting new people, and getting surprised by moments you didn't expect. It's a funny blend. I'm ready to get home, but I'm also wishing the ride could keep going for just a little longer. I really do love traveling this way. Long days in the saddle, big landscapes, mountains, deserts, national parks, small towns, new restaurants, and all the people I met. The rhythm of this road trip, it fits, it feels right. If you've been following this journey all the way through, thank you. And if you're new here or curious about my motorcycle travels, check out my Grand Detour playlist. There's more than 50 videos from this trip alone for you to see. And if you enjoy the ride, click like and subscribe. It helps more people find the channel, and it keeps me motivated. Let's ride this final leg of my Grand Detour. Day 107, Mitchell, South Dakota to Minneapolis, Minnesota. 297 miles, 4 hours and 32 minutes of riding time. Day 107 started early because I had lunch plans in Minneapolis. The ride across southern Minnesota was smooth and relaxed. I rode Interstate 90 for a long while before turning onto the secondary roads northeast towards Minneapolis. It was mostly long, straight roads through farmland. There was the occasional turn to skirt around one of the many lakes in the region. Nothing dramatic or technical, just a nice, easy morning ride on the bike, with a little traffic when I got close to the city. I parked the bike at the hotel and took an Uber to lunch with my former colleague and friend Crystal. My previous company had an office in Minneapolis, so I knew a lot of people there. But with the unpredictability of motorcycle travel, she was the only one that could get away on short notice. So after many weeks of talking mostly with people I had just met, wonderful people, but new faces, catching up with someone who already knows your story was a nice change. Great to see you, Crystal. I grabbed dinner, a short walk from the hotel, and got to bed early. Tomorrow, I had a big decision to make. Day 108, Minneapolis, Minnesota to Thunder Bay, Ontario. 351 miles, 6 hours and 3 minutes of riding time. That morning, I faced the classic end-of-trip question. Do I just head straight home on the highways, or do I take the long way and spend a few more days on the road? The pull of home, Dunnet, Findlay, friends, and of course New York City itself was strong. But I think you already know the decision I made. And so I turned north, toward Lake Superior. The stretch of highways from Minneapolis to Duluth was pretty ordinary, until it wasn't. The air cooled, the terrain rose, and suddenly I was riding along the largest of the Great Lakes. Huge, calm, stretching so far, it doesn't look like a lake at all. Of course, seeing the great lake they call Gitchagumi, the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald song popped into my head. That old Gordon Lightfoot song was released in 1976, a year after the ship sank. And I remember hearing it all the time when I was 7, right as the world was switching from AM to FM radio. After 20 years at the bottom of the lake, the 200-pound bell was raised in 1995 and is now on display at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish Point, near Sault Ste. Marie. And I'd actually be relatively close to there in a couple of days. But given that I would have to cross the border again a couple more times to visit, I decided to save it for another day. From Duluth north, Highway 61 follows the western shoreline through two harbors, Lutsen and Grand Marais. It's one of those roads where the scenery changes quickly. You get glimpses of the lake between the trees, the cliffs, the coves, and the small towns. I stopped at Grand Portage National Monument, an interesting historic site, to get my stickers and National Park passport stamp. If you're ever up that way, you might also want to check out Ile Royal National Park. It's the least visited park in the U.S. National Park System, and is only accessible by boat. I continued north a few more miles to cross into Canada for the second time on this trip, and I rolled into Thunder Bay for the night. This far north, the daylight lasts forever, and it was still light out when I had dinner and I went to bed. It was a satisfying end to the day. Day 109, Thunder Bay, Ontario to Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. 435 miles, 7 hours and 40 minutes of riding time. Day 109 was long, but it was also one of many memorable riding days of the whole trip. I started in heavy fog, and everything was quiet and soft. But the fog burned off quickly, and I followed Canada's Route 17, part of the Trans-Canada Highway, turning right along Superior's North Shore. On the long ride, I crossed through Rossport, Heron Bay, White River, and Wawa, catching different views and moods of the lake all day. Calm, windy, shimmering, overcast, and always massive. The stretch through Lake Superior Provincial Park was particularly incredible. Rolling hills, sweeping curves, elevation changes, cliffs, lookouts, and sudden flashes of blue water. It felt like the lake wanted to surprise me every few miles. By the time I reached Sault Ste. Marie, I was tired in the best possible way. Dinner and bed. Day 110, Sault Ste. Marie to Toronto, Ontario. 424 miles, 7 hours and 31 minutes of riding time. As I packed up the bike and got ready to head out, I noticed a couple of other bikes parked nearby. One rider was on the balcony of his room watching me. You see, I was tired after that long day, and I just pulled front into my spot, which was down a little incline. He called out, "I can't wait to see how you back out of there." I smiled, I waved, and I put my bike into reverse. Mine is one of the few bikes out there with a reverse gear, and it's helped me more than once. The landscape softened and got more populated as I left Superior behind and rolled into the Lake Huron region. More towns, more businesses, and more people on the road. A few hours in, I made a quick stop at a Tim Hortons for coffee and something sweet. It felt very Canadian. And a few hours later, I rounded a curve and passed a flipped-over travel trailer. Everyone was okay, but it was a good reminder to stay sharp. Even on open, easy roads, things can change quickly. Somewhere south of Sudbury, I pulled into a gas station, and I heard a Harley behind me. I turned around, and there they were, Dana and Harriet, the couple from New Hampshire I'd met back in Custer, South Dakota. The odds of bumping into them again were tiny, but that's the wild thing about long rides. Paths cross when they're meant to. We chatted for a bit and wished each other well, and continued our separate ways home, totally forgetting to capture the moment with a picture. I neared Toronto and the traffic thickened. The quiet, twisty roads turned into busy highways with lots of trucks. I had decided to stay near the airport, both to avoid downtown and to avoid the morning commuting traffic tomorrow. It was a good day. Day 111, Toronto, Ontario to Painted Post, New York. 231 miles, 4 hours and 17 minutes of riding time. Day 111 was rain, sun, on repeat. Through St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, and into Buffalo, it just kept shifting every few miles. The Buffalo border crossing took the longest of any on the trip. Apparently, my clean-shaven passport photo didn't quite match the beard I was now sporting. I took off my helmet and answered a few more questions, and I was back in the US. I stopped in Hamburg to see an old friend I hadn't seen in almost a decade. It wasn't a long visit, but it was good to see him. A small moment of reconnection before the final push home. I rode through the hills and farmland of northwestern New York and south of the Finger Lakes to Corning and Painted Post. And as I checked into my last hotel of the trip, some hard rains began to fall. I grabbed a 7-Eleven sandwich and a cold beer for dinner. Not glamorous, but it felt fitting somehow. Tomorrow, I'd be home. Day 112. Painted Post, New York to New York City. 252 miles, 4 hours and 21 minutes of riding time. The last morning felt surprisingly normal and very familiar. I've done this route plenty of times, through Corning and Binghamton, down through Scranton, where I always have Harry Chapin's 30,000 Pounds of Bananas song in my head, and then on to Route 80 in New Jersey. The rains came and went, the state lines were crossed, and the miles passed quickly. Somewhere in New Jersey, the clouds cleared, and the heat started to hit. I knew I was close, and I was looking forward to that spot on the highway where you get your first glimpse of the New York City skyline. I saw home and I felt a mix of relief, pride, gratitude, and a little disbelief. After 112 days, I'd made it. Back to Donette, back to Findlay, back to friends, and back to the city that's been my home for decades. The noise, the heat, the chaos, all of it. Through the Holland Tunnel and pulling up to my building, Donette and Findlay were waiting for me. I unloaded the bike, brought everything inside, and I parked the bike at my local garage. It was a beautiful New York City summer day, and Donette and I took Findlay for a nice long walk along the East River. It was good to be home. I think every American motorcycle rider dreams of a cross-country trip, and the one I just finished was epic. All told, I had ridden 18,225 miles in 112 days. I had visited 28 states, 29 national parks, and countless state parks. I traversed 3 Canadian provinces, explored 3 Canadian national parks, and a few provincial parks as well. The bike had performed beautifully. Not only was it amazingly comfortable and fun to ride, it had gone through 2 tire changes and 3 oil changes. It got some new accessories in a parking lot at the rally in Redmond, Oregon, and had a faulty water pump replaced. It deserved a rest and a good wash in the coming days. But those are just the numbers. There's a line from Wallace Stegner that sticks with me. We're most alive when we are discovering. I get it. In coming episodes, I'll talk about what 112 days on the road taught me. The gear that worked, the surprises, the questions I get most often, and what's it really like living off a motorcycle for nearly 4 months. You should check out my Rhythm and Rides 25 playlist. That covers my 10-day trip to the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America National Rally near Nashville, Tennessee this past June. And just the other day, I got back from a week riding the Appalachian and Blue Ridge Mountains in West Virginia, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. So I've got plenty of footage to share over the coming months. And what's my next big trip? In May and June 2026, I'm planning a ride through Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador, to see the icebergs, the puffins, and the beautiful coastlines of northern Maine and Canada. There's plenty more to see. So thanks for riding along on my Grand Detour. Until the next ride, be safe, be curious, and keep meandering.